I made this Kirblog in America. Damn. I made this Kirblog in America. This question comes from stencetheboss, who asked, I'd love to hear you talk about BECK, just because I find it hard to find people who actually know about and appreciate it at the same time. Well, boy howdy, I sure do, because I love me some BECK Mongolian Chop Squad. By the way, hi, welcome, Anime April continues, yes. I hope you enjoyed the 2-hour discussion about fucking Naruto that I did with Scott a little while ago. I'm going to do another obscure one that I actually discovered, I think, around the same time that I was getting myself into Speedgrapher. BECK Mongolian Chop Squad. It is a wonderful 26-episode show about a bunch of kids in Japan who want to become a rock band, specifically to eventually move to America and hit it big. And it is simply amazing. It is one of my favorite shows of all time. Little origin story on that, I guess, to begin with. I once again don't remember exactly how I heard about it. Probably just when I was watching a lot of whatever Funimation was, producing at the time, just putting out lots and lots of anime by the bulk, trying out a lot of different shows and things. I remember it started airing, I think, on some kind of like channel in Canada. It was like some kind of like music specific channel. It was like a censored version because there's a lot of cursing in the show. It was treated pretty realistically. And then I remember hearing a lot about how, because it was when Taliesin Jaffe, who is, for those of you who don't know, he's the English dub director of Hellsing. He did a lot of the Street Fighter and Capcom various games from kind of around that era, like the mid to late 2000s. Great director. He was going to Funimation to co-direct the English dub for the show with Chris Bevins, who I mentioned and went on and on about during the Speedgrapher Kirblog that I did. And basically the two of them teamed up on directing the show together, and it was a massive labor of love, and it was very difficult because basically it was a very difficult kind of show to adapt. There's a lot of there's characters that grew up in America that speak in English in the Japanese version, and there's also a lot of songs which they often in anime dubs, usually for like rights issues, they don't dub like in episode character songs or even like the openings and endings, to be honest. But in this series they wanted to go that route because that's kind of part of the whole crux of it, is that these 5 kids get together and they form a rock band and they're singing stuff together. It at its core, that's what it's about, but it's also a beautifully executed story about this teenage kid growing up and kind of discovering himself and what it is that he loves to do more than anything, which I know is like, oh, I haven't seen that before. But what really sets BECK apart is, and interestingly, I'll even say up front, its animation quality is not very good. It actually at times looks kind of very like shoddy. But what it makes up for in that is its tone and the visuals that go along with it. It feels incredibly real. Like very few shows, I'm not even talking just anime, I mean just very few like animated shows in general have ever felt like I'm really watching a person's like real life, and realistically getting like, particularly the life of like a teenager and kind of how he sees and learns about the sort of adult world, not in such a like grim way. There's definitely some darker periods of the story as well, but it's a really like homely, like real kind of like just cool growing up story, and like you really feel like you're kind of part of it almost. Koyuki, the main character, is a kid who was learning guitar and he wants to be a singer. And he meets this girl, Maho, who's also a singer, and her older brother, Ryusuke, who goes by Ray, because, again, they grew up in America, the two of them. And he's a big guitarist. And then kind of them all by chance meeting through this weird-looking, the one, like, sort of supernatural element of the entire thing, which is just this dog who looks like he was made from, like, patchwork, like he's a zombie dog named BECK. They all meet through chance by this dog. And then from there, they start basically forming a band, and they meet the bassist Taira, the other singer Chiba Tsunemi, who's hilarious, and I love him, and Saku, the drummer, who comes in a little later into the game, and then it's kind of following their exploits of how they start trying to. It's pretty interesting because it also shows a lot into like the kind of real music world of like indie bands trying to rise up and like make a name for themselves and everything, without the internet, of course. Yeah, they get into like real fights over like, the creative side of it and the business side of it, and like kind of learning like the not so fun part of getting into the entertainment business, where clashes with the artistic side of just wanted to make music and wanted to perform and etc. So it kind of gives like a real view into how that sort of stuff works, and which is even relatable to like other creative mediums as well, to different extents. But the music world in particular is to me is really interesting, because I feel like music is something that that really anybody can connect with, like no matter like who you are, really. It's it's something that's just like easily, because I was thinking about like lots of sports anime and stuff like that recently as well, and because I think that to some extent like those are and are not accessible to people, and like just like action shows are and are not in different ways depending on what your tastes are. But like music is something that I feel it's so universal, and like this story is so incredibly universally accessible in terms of like it's I mean, obviously it's teenagers specifically living in Japan, but there's a lot of it has a very like worldly view of it that I feel like anybody can grasp onto. And there are a lot of like American characters that live in there. I don't want to spoil too much about like the because the plot starts to take kind of an interesting and more dramatic shift a little later on, because some other certain issues get involved that I'll let you discover on your own when if you want to watch it, because I would highly recommend that you watch this show, not to skip to the end. But yeah. So it's it peers really well into that, and also the whole way it's kind of all told from Koyuki's perspective, and he like I was mentioning before, he's kind of growing up, and his whole dynamic with all the different members of the band, and him trying to progress himself, and then some of the romantic interest stuff that gets integrated in there. It's got like a lot of everything. It's got like a nice, well-rounded little bit of everything all kind of mixed in there, and it's really well mixed together with another particularly great set of main characters. There's the 5 members of the band, and actually, if anything, even far beyond just the main 5. But because Maho isn't technically part of the band, but she's a major character in it. There's also Koyuki's teacher from school, who he ends up later having kind of like a major bonding experience with, because he's in the manga, I believe he's a big fan of the Beatles, the teacher character, and in the show they had like a sort of swap out non-copyright version of the Beatles, like the Rocket Boys or something like that. They have a big bonding experience together. There's also one of my favorites. There's a bully character who Koyuki has a little bit of like a small arc with. And they kind of like unwittingly end up having a whole bonding experience together and connect together through music as well, which is great, because that was a really nice way to kind of tie the theme of music really does bring everybody together in some way, and in its connectability and its like universal like understanding of what it is kind of thing. So yeah, I just got captivated by the show. I really wish I could remember like a lot of these series exactly how I got like really interested, but I just like started seeing it around everywhere. I think by that point it might have even been because I knew that I liked most of the stuff that Chris Bevins was directing, and I was interested in it. The voice cast for the dub is stacked. I remember they were talking about this in the commentaries about how there was a very extensive auditioning process for this one, where they had to get people who could actually sing to do the songs in certain cases. Kevin Connolly, by the way, Kevin M. Connolly of Parody Rangers, he was King Stan. He has a really funny character in the show as well, who also gets to sing a song. I won't spoil too much about that either, but he's hilarious. Kevin, if you're listening to this. Anyway, but yeah, and also I think they even cast a lot of the actors like who play the same instruments as the characters do. Like Johnny Bosch is the drummer, Jerry Jewell is the bassist. Justin Cook is Chiba, who's the more rap-centric singer of Beck, he's goddamn hilarious. I'm assuming Eric Vale, who plays Ray, plays the guitar. I wouldn't put it past him, because he's just way too talented for his own goddamn good. He is a highlight of the show, and I mean that. Eric, if you're listening, which you're not, but I love you. And then Greg Ayers plays Koyuki and sings as well, does a fantastic job. Brina Palencia as Maho is like blows me the fuck away. She's like the highlight performance, I think, the most to me anyway on that show. And I love me some Justin Cook. I love Eric Vale. for sure. But yeah, Brina Palencia is incredible on Maho, like acting and singing wise. She's amazing. She's worth watching the show alone, honestly. Yeah, and there's also some other cool little cameos in the voice cast kind of tossed around. Jamie McGonigal, who's a New York-based actor, plays one of the kind of early antagonistic characters as well, and he was really funny on that part. Rob McCollum is the bully character. Bruce Elliott is the old guy, the teacher. Jason Lieberkson and a whole bunch of other folks. It's really, really good. I remember when I was buying the 3-episode discs or whatever as I was going through college and watching it periodically. I think in first year of college when Mike and I were roommates back at SVA, and so he was watching it with me. I think even he was getting kind of into it for a little bit. Yeah, it's a fantastic show. It and Speedgraph are the two that I often try to recommend to a lot of people, but I think that BECK is one that I would recommend to anybody. It is just such it. Bevins or Taliesin, I can't remember which one of them. They said in one of the commentaries that it's like somebody shot a movie and they lost the footage, so they just animated to it instead because that was the only choice that they had or whatever. This feels like just you are literally peering into a human being's life and getting their experiences through it, with this all this subject matter that is just so. Not only like I keep saying it's very relatable, but it's also it's very, very well executed because of the fact that it feels so incredibly real, and also it is very captivating. It is very unique. There's kind of following the journey of them, and you really do root for them, and you learn kind of the harsh realities of what it takes to to make it big in the music scene and et cetera. And there's all these great moments. These in particular, I don't want to spoil what they are because I feel like you just need to kind of see them for yourself and experience the story from beginning to end to the way that it should be seen. It's just experience is really, I know that's kind of a generic way of putting it, but it really is like a beautiful experience. I just it was one of those shows I never quite felt the same way watching any other series than BECK, because I just felt like I was really in another world, experiencing somebody else's life. And I'm going in circles. I know. I apologize. Another thing that's kind of cool, and especially if you perhaps buy the DVDs, I don't know if it's in the box set, but in the individual ones that I had, they had solo music, or not solo, separate music videos of all the different songs that the characters would sing throughout the show. So there's no legal OST of the English versions of these songs that the characters sing and everything, but they have them available for your viewing pleasure on those if you can still find them. And Justin Cook. I mean, I know I was talking about a lot of different highlights, and with Brina and Maho, but Justin Cook on Chiba Tsunemi as the singer for BECK is so goddamn great. I swear to God, it's made me want to hear him break out into the fucking Aqua Teen Hunger Force theme song at some point. And that character, it's if we're going to talk about Yu Yu Hakusho soon, but if you guys like Justin Cook on Yusuke, you will love him on Chiba Tsunemi, because he's just so off the wall, over the top, funny, and also, I mean, I think even Taliesin said some of it is still pretty tame in comparison to real life, but because there is foul language, but not so much, just because of the cursing, but also because just the way that the characters speak, the way that the writing was on this show, more so than anything, was just very, very well paid attention to. Dialogue is something I can sometimes be very, very, very nitpicky about. If I'm oh yeah, that's how people talk in real life. Okay, whatever, guys. I'll my bullshit sensors fly off or whatever. But BECK is one of those shows that I was just oh, this is perfect. It really is treated so well in its adaptive scripting as well. And they kind of interesting. I was mentioning earlier a lot of characters that speak in English in the Japanese version. What they did to kind of circumvent that, because a lot of different shows have to contend with that situation in different ways sometimes, is they had it so those arguments where somebody is talking in a different language or whatever, they're more so cultural misunderstandings as opposed to like, language barrier misunderstandings kind of thing. It's hard to describe, but you kind of have to see it for yourself. Like, it just kind of seamlessly fits within the flow of the story without it like being distracting. Like, oh, this is a dub thing. Like, what are they doing to circumvent this or whatever? But yeah, this is one that I absolutely cannot say enough good things about. It is such a good series. I'm going to link to where you can watch and buy it in the description below. I'm not sure if it's another series that's free. I'm assuming it probably isn't on Funimation's website, but you can get it. It's 26 episodes. It's wonderful. I very highly recommend it, even more so than I went on and on about Speed Grapher before. I know I got a few people interested in watching that show before, and even some people who had started watching and didn't finish it. If you've never seen BECK Mongolian Chop Squad, please, for the love of God, watch this show. Like, it will change your life. This is one I didn't even really say that before. This is one that I felt very changed by. This is like a feeling that I want to try to invoke in more stuff that I do in the future, because like stuff like Tome is pretty it's still pretty like over the top at times, even though I try to go like relatively realistic with how I treat my characters for the most part. But the feeling that I got invoked from a show like BECK is like it's something that I so want to capture in my own work. Maybe particularly with balancing act, when I eventually do that down the line. But yeah, it's incomparable. It's really something that you have to like experience for yourself, and and maybe it won't be your thing, because I don't know. I could also see like the animation being kind of shitty or whatever, like certain things about the characters that people wouldn't be sold immediately or whatever. Much like how I was saying Speed Grapher wouldn't be for everybody because of the the massive amounts of violence or whatever. But BECK is something I feel is just, again, so universally accessible and just so well executed that like anybody and everybody could and should see this show. So highly recommend it. That's going to do it. Thanks for listening. And I believe our next one may be another super long one, depending, but I don't know until I record it. But I'll probably be having some more guests. But in the meantime, in the comments below, if you have seen BECK Mongolian Chop Squad, please leave me your thoughts about it. Favorite characters, favorite songs, favorite moments, or anything like that. Very curious. And if you have not seen the series, I hope that you will check it out. Again, I'll have a link to it in the description below. If you have suggestions for future Kirblog topics, particularly for April, leave a comment about that too, and perhaps I will cover it in an upcoming episode. But that'll do it. Thanks for listening, and I will catch you all very soon. It's like a little guitar riff like at the end of the song. Right, good. Bye.